Why and where did the gut bacteria come from? The gut bacteria, also known as the gut microbiota, begin to colonize the gastrointestinal tract shortly after birth. The initial colonization occurs during and shortly after delivery, and the exact sources of these bacteria can vary depending on factors such as mode of delivery, vaginal birth versus cesarean section, feeding practices, breastfeeding versus formula feeding, and environmental exposures. Gut microbiota exerts profound effects on brain development through various mechanisms, highlighting the importance of nurturing a healthy gut microbiome, especially during critical periods of early life.
So wait a second. Are you saying that my brain development is dependent on my bacteria being there under the age of 1 while my brain is still developing, and it actually has an influence on my brain development? The studies have been shown, yes. Bacteria were here for billions of years before the mammalians came about. And our very design had bacteria in it. They were part of our development as we are today. And that's why we only have 21,000 human genes. Did you know that the fly has more genes than we do? The worm has more genes than the human. You are utilizing their genetic ability and their quick turnover and changes in their genetics that occurs in the bacteria to your advantage. Now, how did I discover and read all this? It's because I figured that all these chemicals in the body, where do they all come from? Is it all that I'm eating? Or is it all that I'm making? No, we realize that the bacteria are making a lot of this stuff. It's the bacteria. We've outsourced everything. They started outsourcing way before we started outsourcing. So that gave us the advantage that we didn't have to, because of our long lifespan as well, wait for beneficial mutations. The bacteria are mutating practically every 24 hours. So if there's a change in the environment and you're adapting to it, your bacteria are far better able to adapt to it because of their rapid turnover. The lifespan of a bacteria is only a matter of hours or days at the most. So they are more likely to have mutations that are going to be either beneficial or not beneficial to us. So the bacteria have been with us all along. So where did you get the bacteria from? Well, in a normal delivery, you come through the birth canal and mom already has all the bacteria there. Now, it's funny that those bacteria are to populate your gut, but you'd think that that population is very different. Did you know that in the last months of pregnancy, the entire bacterial flora in the birth canal changes? More lactobacillus, for example, because the mom is actually exporting bacteria and changing the population in the birth canal so that when you come out, you're going to be bathed in these new bacteria that she made specially for you, especially for your gut, specially designed for you to match also your genetics. So as you come through the birth canal, you then populate yourself. You populate your skin, your nose, your eyes, your ears, and of course your gut. And now these bacteria get into your gut. Second thing, mom, through breastfeeding, gives you further bacteria. There's actually bacteria in milk, mother's milk. Most people don't know that, but it's true. There are bacteria in them. And they also contain these oligosaccharides. So what are oligosaccharides? They are very complex carbohydrate molecules in mother's milk. Why? You can't digest it. I can't digest it. Nobody can digest it. The baby can't digest it. So why is that in the mother's milk? Well, it's not for you. It's for your bacteria. So your bacteria feed on those molecules because you're encouraging the growth of certain types of bacteria. So you attract and keep the bacteria you want in your gut depending on what you eat. That's why fiber is so good for you as an adult. Because when you eat the right fiber, you're going to attract the right population of it. I mean, that's nature. You give it the food, the right bugs will come over there. So you foster the growth of a good bacterial population in your gut. So this population, which is trillions and trillions and trillions, there's going to be good guys, bad guys. It's a mixture of everybody. It's what we call the landscape. The landscape is very varied. So the good take care of the bad guys, and they are all kept under control because there needs to be a balance. It's not just one species. There's multitude of species in the gut. So that's mostly how we get. Now, if you get a C-section, you're a little bit of a disadvantage. Why? Because you're not really getting all that bacterial load onto you. And next thing is, caressing a baby, holding a baby, breastfeeding the baby, family members coming, touching the baby. You are transferring your familial microbes to that baby. Now, why is that important? That's important because the data now shows that you actually make proteins in your gut that get secreted by your gut lining to attract the right bacteria. So the right bacteria there, you already have the genetics for those bacteria that you're not going to fight them. So you already programmed for a certain bacterial population that these guys are all my friends and I'm not going to mount a response against them. How did it happen? It happened in your genetics. Mom's genetics, dad's genetics, already all built in there. That these guys are all my buddies. Do not attack them. And then those bugs come in because they were persuaded to come in because of the food that you gave them through the milk, as well as the proteins that you produced in your gut lining. So there's a balance there. There's a symbiotic relationship. So what is this called? This is called a commensal relationship between the gut bacteria and the human being. So now we say, okay, so all my friends have arrived now, and I'm going to work with them, together with them, to have the chemistry that is needed to make this baby into a functional adult. Okay, so that's how the bacteria get in there. So if we take a course of antibiotics right at time of childbirth, has that been shown to have an effect on the baby? The answer is yes. Does it have an effect on the mom? Yes. Are you creating perturbations that are going to be bad? That, wait a second, I'm interfering with the bacterial population, and is that of any consequence? And the answer is a resounding yes.
The use of antibiotics can indeed lead to dysbiosis, which refers to an imbalance or disruption in the composition and function of the gut microbiota. Antibiotics are medications designed to kill or inhibit the growth of bacteria. And while they are often necessary to treat bacterial infections, they can have unintended consequences on the beneficial bacteria in the gut. Here's how antibiotics can cause dysbiosis. Broad-spectrum activity. Many antibiotics have a broad spectrum of activity, meaning they can affect a wide range of bacteria, including both harmful pathogens and beneficial commensal bacteria in the gut. This indiscriminate killing of bacteria can disrupt the balance of the gut microbiota. Reduction in microbial diversity. Antibiotics can reduce the diversity of bacterial species in the gut. A diverse gut microbiota is important for maintaining health, as different species of bacteria perform various functions, such as aiding in digestion, producing vitamins, and preventing the colonization of harmful pathogens. A decrease in microbial diversity can make the gut more susceptible to colonization by opportunistic pathogens. Alterations in composition. Antibiotics can selectively target certain bacterial species or strains while sparing others. This selective pressure can lead to shifts in the composition of the gut microbiota, with potentially harmful consequences. For example, it may allow for the overgrowth of antibiotic-resistant bacteria or the proliferation of opportunistic pathogens. Impact on metabolism and immune function. The gut microbiota plays a crucial role in metabolism and immune function. Disruption of the gut microbiota by antibiotics can alter metabolic processes and weaken immune function, potentially increasing the risk of metabolic disorders and susceptibility to infections. Long-term effects. While the gut microbiota has some capacity to recover following antibiotic treatment, the recovery process may be incomplete or may take time. In some cases, the effects of antibiotic-induced dysbiosis can persist for an extended period, potentially increasing the risk of recurrent infections, gastrointestinal issues, and other health problems. Dysbiosis refers to an imbalance or disruption in the composition and function of the gut microbiota, which can have negative effects on health. Normally, the gut microbiota consists of a diverse community of microorganisms, including bacteria, viruses, fungi, and archaea, which play important roles in digestion, metabolism, immune function, and protection against pathogens. Dysbiosis has been linked to various health conditions and diseases, including gastrointestinal disorders. Dysbiosis has been implicated in conditions such as irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, and gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD. Metabolic disorders. Imbalances in the gut microbiota have been associated with metabolic disorders such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. Immune disorders. Dysbiosis can affect immune function and contribute to autoimmune diseases, allergies, and inflammatory conditions. Neurological disorders. Emerging research suggests a link between dysbiosis and neurological disorders, such as autism spectrum disorder, depression, anxiety, and Parkinson's disease. The gut-brain axis, which involves bidirectional communication between the gut and the brain, may play a role in these associations. Cardiovascular disease. Dysbiosis has been linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease through mechanisms involving inflammation, lipid metabolism, and the production of metabolites that affect cardiovascular health.
Enough of this chemistry, physiology, biochemistry, everything else. What can I do today to improve my gut bacteria so that my gut lining is also better, so that I have less inflammation in my body, so that I will not get the diseases of modern man. Modern man, from the industrialization, since then this is what happened. These are all new acquired diseases that we are now looking at. And it's our lifestyle. Number one, fasting. Why do I tell them to fast? What's that got to do with the microbiome? Well, when you fast, guess what happens to the bad guys in your gut? They have nothing to eat. And I told you, their half-life is really short. So they start dying off. So their population goes down. The good guys, their population stays good. In fact, it gets even better because the body wants to preserve those and produces chemicals to actually feed those bacteria. So there's a dramatic change in fasting in the bacterial flora. This has been shown over and over again. The fasting doesn't only benefit you in one way, that, okay, fine, I'm fasting, so I'm not taking any food inside. But no, your butyric acid levels go up, your ketones go up, your brain changes. It gets neuroplasticity and brain-derived neurotropic factors. But some of the ketosis and the changes in the biochemistry actually changes your gut flora as well. So it's very interesting that it's all linked in. So fasting does improve your gut flora. In fact, if you look at hibernating animals, when they are fasting in that state, there's a huge change in the microbiome that occurs. The microbiome changes in people who get gastric bypass. And we think that, gastric bypass, they're just eating less and eating smaller amounts. But no, we now know that most of the changes, the beneficial changes that are occurring after gastric bypass surgery is as a result of the microbiome changes completely. It's drastic change. That's how you get reversal of diabetes and obesity and all the other conditions associated with morbid obesity. And talk about obesity, I just want to throw in 2 points. If your BMI is over 40, you've just lost 7 years of your life. If your BMI is over 50, you've just lost 14 years of your life. This is not to be taken lightly. Obesity is just a phenotype of something that may be going on inside your body. It's not just, I'm obese. Not to be. If you want a functional, long life, then get your BMI down to normal. This is very important. So intermittent fasting, time-restricted feeding. Remember, your microbiome also has a circadian pattern. So if you're eating every 2 hours, you've shown no respect for the circadian pattern of your microbiome. So therefore, that microbiome is going to be stressed out. You're going to have the wrong kind. And that's been shown over and over again. You eat every 2-3 hours, and you're going to have a different type of microbiome than if you do time-restricted feeding. Because teleologically, through evolution also, you were not supposed to be eating every few hours. Go look at my previous videos on fasting to be convinced. You got to do time-restricted feeding. Okay, this is very important. So fasting, I think you can go look at my slides on that, but they do affect the microbiome and affects your inflammation. Fiber, whole foods. Look, you're supposed to eat whole foods. I thought that food's okay in the upper portion of the gut, it gets digested, hardly any gets down to the colon. No, you need to be eating for you and your bugs. So you say, this is for me. All right, this is a dessert. If you're going to have one, this is for me. It'll all be absorbed halfway down my ileum already. It's all gone. Nothing left to go down to the bottom. Sometimes some gets down and causes small bowel overgrowth, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because those bugs that love sugar, they flourish in that terminal portion of your ileum, and you get this condition. In fact, 61% of obese patients probably have what is known as SIBO. 61% of obese patients probably have SIBO. What does that mean? That means they have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. The dysbiosis that's going on in your colon, now these bacteria go to a different place to live. They start living in the intestine and cause havoc over there. So those are the patients who get a lot of GI symptoms. And SIBO can be treated and can be treated effectively. It can be even diagnosed effectively. You can diagnose SIBO. You can diagnose leaky gut. So all these tests can be done, but the point here is that you need to be eating whole foods with a variety of different types of fiber in your diet. And we know this from our Mediterranean diets, from the diets of people who eat whole foods. They get the right fiber, whole foods. You look at the similarity of all the blue zones. What do they eat? So some eat not that much fiber, but everything they do eat is all whole foods. So because it's all whole food, it will then introduce and bring in the right bacteria as well. So the Inuits, for example, they don't eat that much fiber. But what they do eat, what little they do eat, fosters the growth of the right microbiome. Yeah. Fermented foods. I tell all my patients to eat fermented foods. Every day you should be eating sauerkraut or kimchi or natto, if you like natto. The Japanese eat a lot of natto. What is natto? Natto is fermented soy. You can play with it at home. You can ferment soybeans and you can have that. Yogurt, of course, but I like kefir. I like kefir very much because I think that it actually gets down to the colon and it has great benefit. The more the different varieties of bacteria, the better. And this is very important. Fermented foods. Supplements. There are some supplements that I give my patients to improve their gut bacteria. One of them is, of course, omega-3, because I told you that it produces or stimulates rather intestinal alkaline phosphatase, which actually heals the gut so that they get less leaky gut. And I give some patients prebiotics, which are fiber supplements. Fiber supplements, which I mentioned inulin before, and then there are other fiber supplements that are also available, but I like inulin very much. But there are other prebiotics that are available for my very sick patients. They're basically made out of natural foods that are full of fiber, and then they put it into a little capsule form, and that's helpful. No processed oils. That means no omega-6 and omega-9, which is found in processed oils. So there's a separate talk on processed oils. That's not natural. You don't find that in nature. Yes, you find some polyunsaturated in nuts, for example, but the proportions are less. Even olive oil has some omega-6 in it and a little bit of omega-9 in it, but the proportions are much less. So nature, when it packages things together, it does it very nicely. So olive oil is not all monounsaturated as most people think it is. It's not. Only a proportion of it is polyunsaturated, and it's got monounsaturated in it. And there's even some saturated fat in it. So there's a mixed proportions in it, and everything is. No sweeteners, no preservatives, emulsifiers. Look, these things are all chemicals. They were made to preserve things for convenience, shelf life. That's why the processed oils are also used, like cookies, for example. Emulsifiers. Terrible. Hate emulsifiers. What is an emulsifier? An emulsifier is doing something that's unnatural. It's taking oil and water and putting it together and it's emulsifying it so that it stays together. It's processed. Emulsifiers do terrible things inside your gut. Does the same thing. You're supposed to separate these things out. Emulsifiers, no good. No sugar. Sugar is a processed food. It's taken up by bad bacteria in your gut. Eat a lot of sugar, you got a lot of bad bugs in your gut. That includes high fructose corn syrup, which is really awful. Did you know that the metabolism of high fructose corn syrup is almost identical to alcohol? If your kids are taking high fructose corn syrup, you might as well give them a drink. It's that bad on the liver. So think twice before you give a kid any high fructose corn syrup. Fatty liver is one of the biggest problems that we have in kids today. And they're going to go on to get liver failure down the road. There's absolutely no doubt about it. True allergy workup. So some patients really have gut allergies, and that's why they have leaky gut. Yeah, and they may have gluten allergies. So you can do a gluten test, see whether they actually have gluten sensitivity or not. Sometimes it's the protein that's found in wheat or barley, rye, and oats. But you can run those tests on some patients. But you know what? In my experience, doing this now for a few years now, I find that the allergies is a little overblown. And a lot of people are going on to this gluten-free diet and saying some are feeling better, some are not feeling any better. They go on a gluten-free diet and then they're eating processed foods because there's a lot of processed gluten-free foods. So, if you think you are gluten sensitive or allergic, just do the blood test. It's a clear-cut, nice blood test that's available. And then you can do some exclusions. That means you do everything else, you exclude one group of foods and see how it is. So you got to have patience and have a provider that's going to work with you to see whether you in fact have a true allergy or not. Next one is sleep. You know what sleep got to do with the bacteria? Do bacteria need sleep? Answer is yes, they have a circadian pattern as well. And sleep will change your autonomic condition, will give you sleepy, leaky gut. So one night of no sleep, bad sleep, increases LPS levels in your blood. Bad sleep patterns are inflammatory. There's no doubt about it. We know that. There's increased sympathetic output from the brain. As far as the gut is concerned, you do get leaky gut. So you really have to repair the gut lining. To do that, 7 hours of good sleep. If you're not waking up in the morning feeling refreshed, there's something wrong with your sleep. You need to go see a good sleep physician. Now, that doesn't mean you have obstructive sleep apnea only. Sleep hygiene is important. Sleep apnea simply means that, okay, you're choking at night because of your increased body mass, or maybe your turbinates are all blocked and you've got nasal congestion at night. And by the way, this is happening in kids too. Huge problems with sleep. Why? Because their guts are leaking, and therefore they're getting inflammation. They're getting mucosal thickening, they're mouth breathing. As a result, there's inflammation. There's a difference between nose breathing and mouth breathing. Mouth breathing causes inflammation. Inflammatory markers go up. So these kids are becoming inflamed and they're getting obstructive sleep apnea at night because their noses are getting blocked, the congestion. That's why they get so much infection in their ears as well. So if you get a child that's constantly nose is blocked, get it checked out and get open on them. Do not accept mouth breathing. It affects their sleep patterns at night. It's going to affect their learning. And remember, there's a phase that you go through. If you don't learn it now, it's going to be very hard to learn later on. It's lost years. Sleep is not to be taken lightly, especially in children. So in adults, of course, it's very important too. If you have sleep apnea, due to obesity or due to structural problems, you can take care of it. You can even sleep with a mask temporarily. But of course, the real treatment for obstructive sleep apnea in adults is weight loss, dietary changes. But your sleep hygiene is important. Watching blue light at night decreases the quality of your deep sleep as well. So you need to start dimming the lights, and you need to allow your body to get into that restful state before you go to bed. Stress management. Can stress increase gut leakiness and inflammation and inflammatory markers such as LPS? And the answer is a resounding yes. So you just have one bad, stressful day, you've just had a bunch of LPS go through your body. This is so important. That is why everyone must learn some form of relaxation. Meditation is an excellent one. It's a lovely way to manage stress. And in it, I also added biophilia. So do you know what biophilia is? So biophilia is a great word. Bio means life, or the environment. Philia means love. So when you go for a walk in the mountains, in the hills, or a meadow, or a park, or even on a beach, why do you feel so good? Is it just because, oh, I went out for a walk? No, because you could have gone for a walk in the concrete jungle of downtown, and I don't think you'd feel that good. But biophilia is something special, a feeling of restfulness, of wonderful feeling that you get. Why is that? It's because you're also getting bacteria out there. With every breath that you're taking in millions of bacteria. Did you know that? I mean, you think that we are so clever here. We wash our hands with alcohol and we have this AC going on and everything else. But actually, the air in here is not as good as the air outside. You're actually absorbing, taking in bacteria. You want that because you want that biodiversity in your body, because the body is always looking to say, okay, how can I become stronger? How can I become better? Each breath that you take in takes in millions and millions of bacteria. One drop of ocean water has 1 million bacteria in it. Maybe that's why you're feeling so good when you go for a swim in the river, or go for a swim in the ocean. Because your biophilia gives you the microbiome changes that you're going to need to optimize it. What's missing? Okay, these guys are missing. They all come in. These guys I got plenty of. I don't need these guys. 99.9% of the bacteria out there are harmless to human beings. But we've treated them like enemies, and we've tried to demolish them by starving them out and killing them with antibiotics. And unnecessary, agents such as these hose pipes that are made of these special type of plastics that kill bacteria. Why? What are you going to achieve by doing that? See? So biophilia is really important. Putting yourself in the environment, changing your environment, very important. Exercise. Now, exercise we did talk about a little bit. So why is exercise so helpful? Does your gut flora change when you exercise? The answer is yes. So we know the exercise is good for the cardiovascular system. Did we work it out exactly why? Nobody really knew exactly why exercise is so beneficial for cardiovascular disease. Yeah, having aerobic capacity is very good so that you don't get anaerobic and your heart rate doesn't go up too much and your blood pressure doesn't go up too much, so you can get the same wattage of work done with less effort. So you need cardiac fitness. Okay, but that's different from the biochemistry of your arteries. To make your biochemistry better, exercise also helps, makes the blood vessels better. How? One of the ways it does is butyrate. So when you exercise, you're actually making butyrate, and butyrate actually improves the condition of your blood vessels, and it actually it's anti-atherosclerotic. Hormesis. Why did I throw hormesis in there? Hormesis is a kind of a stress that the body goes through, and that hormesis actually improves your body for the next adventure. Does exercise change your gut bacteria also because it's a form of hormesis? And the answer is yes. So what happens is, let's say I go for a 4-mile walk or 3-mile walk. My body language is as follows. He's changed his environment. He's gone to a new place. And a new place is going to give him new challenges. So I got to prepare for this. And a new place is going to have new bacteria. I need to prepare for that. See? So it makes changes in the body, including your microbiome, because it anticipates that there's going to be a new environment and I got to be better able to handle this new environment. That's how your body knows. How did your body know? What are the markers that told it that there's change in a place that I'm in? So it's trying to maintain homeostasis. So whenever there's some degree of challenge to your homeostasis, there's going to be an improvement in your immune system. And atherosclerosis is an immune problem. It is an immune problem. It's an inflammation problem. So hormesis is necessary. Some form of stress. Exercise. Fasting is hormesis. What else do I do? Besides fasting and exercise, I do hot sauna. Okay? Sauna has been shown to reduce sudden cardiac death by more than 50% if you do it 3 to 4 times a week. And yeah, it's got to do with heat shock proteins and everything else. I don't have data on the gut bacteria, but If you're interested in research, and it seems like you are, then go and do some research on that. I bet you'll find that eventually they're going to find that sauna also makes changes to the gut lining and your bacterial flora. That's how it is anti-inflammatory. So some form of homeostasis. You got to have some form of... And if you just sit around all day doing absolutely nothing, you sit in one spot for weeks after weeks, your immune system's all going to go down. The next bug that comes along, whether it's pneumonia or whatever, bingo, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. You're going to get the illness. And you're going to get a cytokine storm because your immune system was not regulated to say, okay, don't overreact, don't overreact, don't overreact. Remember the Treg cells I told you about? Remember the Treg cells in the intestines? Regulatory cells. These Treg cells are very important. They actually go to your thymus gland as well, and the thymus then, especially during development, that's the master that says, okay, all these following antigens, these are all friends. Don't react to them anymore, okay? Now go out and tell your immune system this answer. And they go out there and tell the whole body, hey, I got a whole bunch of friends here. You don't react to these guys, okay? Don't react to them. These are my friends, Tregs. And that's the homeostasis that we're supposed to be living in. And that's what this is all about, is maintaining that homeostasis. So you need to stress it every now and then a little bit, because what doesn't kill you strengthens you, right? Somebody said that.
Vitamin D has been found to modulate the composition and function of the gut microbiome. Research suggests that vitamin D may influence the growth and activity of certain beneficial bacteria in the gut, while also suppressing the growth of potentially harmful bacteria. Additionally, vitamin D deficiency has been associated with alterations in the gut microbiome composition, including reductions in microbial diversity and changes in the abundance of specific bacterial taxa. Immune regulation. Both vitamin D and the gut microbiome play important roles in regulating immune function. Vitamin D is known to modulate the immune response, including promoting anti-inflammatory effects and enhancing the activity of immune cells involved in defense against infections. Similarly, the gut microbiome interacts closely with the immune system and helps to maintain immune homeostasis. Dysbiosis of the gut microbiome has been linked to immune-related disorders, such as inflammatory bowel disease and autoimmune diseases. Potential interactions. Some research suggests that there may be interactions between vitamin D and the gut microbiome that contribute to overall health and disease risk. For example, vitamin D deficiency has been associated with an increased risk of certain conditions, such as inflammatory bowel disease and colorectal cancer, which are also influenced by gut microbiome dysbiosis. Additionally, the gut microbiome may play a role in mediating the effects of vitamin D on immune function and inflammation. While the precise mechanisms underlying the interactions between vitamin D and the gut microbiome are still being elucidated, it is clear that both play important roles in human health, and optimizing their levels and functions may have beneficial effects on overall well-being.
Hi everyone, Dr. David Perlmutter here. I've been talking quite a bit recently about the virtues of vitamin D and why it's really important to have adequate amounts of vitamin D in your blood, how blood testing for vitamin D is actually very, very important. And I've been doing so by looking at the scientific literature that finds really low levels of vitamin D correlating with things like Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, autism, and even Alzheimer's disease. We've puzzled really for quite some time as to what that relationship is all about. We do know that vitamin D plays a role in allowing the brain to activate pathways that can help it clear itself of debris. But we have some newer information, a newer piece of the puzzle I think that's really quite interesting. A recent study is entitled "Vitamin D Regulates the Gut Microbiome and Protects Mice from Dextrans Sodium Sulfate Colitis." Let me break that down. When mice are given dextrans sodium sulfate, a chemical, in their drinking water, they develop colitis. And one of the studies that I use in many of my presentations demonstrates that when the mice are given this chemical and develop colitis, several things happen. Number one, you see that they lose weight. Number two, inflammatory cells migrate into the lining of the gut. But number three, and I think very importantly, is we've noted in the research that their brains shrink, specifically the memory center of the brain called the hippocampus. In other words, inducing inflammation in the gut of the laboratory animal using this chemical, dextrans sodium sulfate, has the far-reaching effect of causing shrinkage of the memory center. Now, why is that important for us? Because we know that as the memory center, the hippocampus, shrink, that correlates with Alzheimer's. It's one of the findings that we see on MRI scans that correlates with the degree of cognitive impairment that we see in Alzheimer's disease. Well, this is an important study because in the presence of vitamin D, these laboratory animals that were given this chemical that would otherwise have produced inflammation are very, very resistant to that inflammation. Now, what the authors concluded, and I'll quote, "Our data demonstrate that vitamin D regulates the gut microbiome and that vitamin D or deficiency of the vitamin D receptor results in dysbiosis," I'll explain, "leading to greater susceptibility to injury in the gut." Dysbiosis is an alteration of the gut bacteria. So we're just beginning to put the pieces together in terms of mechanisms that move forward, explain to us why vitamin D turns out to be so important for the brain. And it might just be that one important piece of the puzzle is the importance of vitamin D in terms of regulating and maintaining a good diversity of organisms in the gut and helping the gut be resistant to a breakdown of its lining, therefore resistant to creating inflammation in the body that can then affect the brain. So again, I'm all in when it comes to having your vitamin D levels checked and to taking a vitamin D supplement to make sure your vitamin D level, if it's low, gets up to ranges that are acceptable.
I hope you have found my video helpful, and my wish is to help people improve their health and quality of life. Please support my channel by leaving a comment and subscribing.